In this video, we're going to dive deep into abandonment. I would love for you to meet Lisa, a beautiful woman who's been struggling with feeling abandoned by her mother since the age of 10 months old because she was taken away from an unfit mother. Abandonment always comes from your childhood. And if you don't know how to fully process the feelings of abandonment when you're a child, or if the people around you don't help you process it, especially if they're the ones that caused it, this will create a psychological and spiritual separation within yourself. In the psychological world, this is known as a separated part. And these separated parts are the parts of you that gets triggered irrationally and behaves emotionally because it's doing its best from a younger point of view to get your attention and to receive help the best way it knows how. Watch as I use heart centered NLP coaching to permanently release decades of abandonment in less than 60 minutes by simply getting to the root of where her abandoned part became separated. And we're going to resourcefully reconnect this part back to her total self with the help of the divine presence. And if you need reconnecting a deep part of you that's feeling abandoned, do not hesitate to reach out for help. Well, for today, it's pretty chill. We're just kind of because it sounds like a no big deal, but it sounds like a really big deal, which it is, but get to like the root of whatever abandonment issues there is and heal, release, upgrade, reconnect, basically. Because anytime if we're talking about abandonment, essentially abandonment, especially with adoption, it's like a break in the timeline is one way to explain it. So it's like conception in the womb, birth, and then it's like this alternate timeline. Like it's supposed to go this way, but it kind of goes this way, and there's a little bit maybe confusion in between. But then there's like a break in connection is one of the best ways to explain it. Then of course you grow and you life evolves beyond a baby, but or young child. But if there's trauma, which is a very interesting word, which there is, then the adult could forgive or understand things, but there's still the younger part. It doesn't make sense, and it needs more information, it needs more love. We need to go to that level of depth to get its needs met. And trauma is a really interesting thing. I kind of had a realization. I can't remember Dr. Robert. I can see his name, but he's this guy who I think he's from somewhere in like Hungary. I think he's a doctor, and I think he was in the concentration camp. But then he later became a psychologist, and he helps people. And he talks about trauma. Trauma isn't what happens to us; it's the lack of ability for us to communicate, like to our loved ones, what happens, to share it with, and then for them to hold space, and then to be able to process it. So a lot of people think trauma is the event, and it's not. It's the meaning that we put to the event, but more and a different way to say that is like we don't have anyone to process this experience with. And especially most trauma, I think, comes from parents. And it doesn't mean that parents have to be abusive or neglectful or alcoholics or throwing us around. But most trauma comes from parents, that relationship, because we can't talk to them. Like if they had things that were missing in their childhood and their mental map of the world, their heart, and we can't talk to them about that, especially if they're the one that caused it, so to speak. So, how does that resonate with you so far?
I'm with you 100%. I mean, it's exactly how I feel about the topic. Mhm.
So tell me more than what have you explored? Because life is really all about like self-exploration, self-realization. You like know thyself, getting to know that yourself better. That's what really life is about. And what if you can, I mean, you can share as much as you want, or you can bullet points if you want to. What have you discovered so far about abandonment? Well, how far has your personal research gone?
Well, so I was adopted when I was 11, and my parents that adopted me were very um, intuitive people. And so I started at a young age doing things like reading a lot of books about identity um, and what it is and what it is not. And um, so it started pretty young. And I think even like in my early 20s, I um, got married and then was thinking about having a family. And um, so it became something I wanted to really work on with myself when I was during that time frame. And but I don't think at that point I really knew completely how to. It's like I have a very close relationship with God, but I did not necessarily understand how the unconscious mind works and how you can have these um, parts of you from younger times that are you're not associating with um, as an adult. And like you said, I went through a lot of the forgiving as an adult and understanding really what that meant and what it did not mean. But it has just been very apparent to me that as much time as I have spent working on the forgiveness and things like that, that there are just so many instances from my younger time that I have not fully, getting to the root of it all. It's like I have dealt with certain instances or situations, but when my reaction to situations or my triggers happen, to me, it doesn't even make sense. Like, why am I feeling like this about this situation? Um, and it always comes back to, well, because what's going on in this situation to me equals abandonment in my files, in my mind. And I'm just really ready to not have those triggers anymore. I'm just over it, you know?
No, I appreciate that and I hear you. And let's talk about because nobody is born with abandonment issues, meaning like something has to happen in order for us to make the decision that we were abandoned.
Mhm.
So, I mean, that's how it happens. It starts with a decision. So, ask your unconscious mind, what's the first number, age that comes to mind when I ask you, how old were you when you decided that you have been abandoned? So,
I was probably not even a year old. I was in a children's home.
so in a children's home, and do you remember like anything about it in terms of, I mean, so like less than a year. How how old is diapers? Like diapers is like after a
Up
year.
up to a couple years. I mean,
Yeah.
it depends on how quickly the child,
Yeah.
develops, but
So the baby still so given up for adoption right after birth.
mm-mm.
When were you given up?
I was not really ever given up per se. I was just left. And that was when I was 10.
Okay. So what about you said before birth though? Tell me more
Um,
about that. I
at
mean,
a year,
before one. Tell me more about that.
I was in a lot of different foster homes growing up because my biological mom, her name is Linda. We can just call her Linda because that's what I call her. Um, she was not really well equipped to be a parent, and she had two children, and I don't think could handle it very well. So we were taken away numerous times. Um, and while that maybe wasn't her choice, I think I still associate not being with her as an abandonment.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting thing because I felt that way in a different thing. For me, it was 15 years old and it was a mentally ill mom and it how do I explain this? I was never taken away from her. she wasn't equipped to be a really great mother. And I like chose to go like it basically the way I explain it, I feel like a big nuclear bomb went off in my family system. And I chose to go with my dad because he was like the saner, healthier of the two when they got divorced. But I wasn't left. I wasn't taken away, but I did still feel abandoned. And how or why? My feeling was she didn't love me enough or love herself enough to develop herself in order to like be the kind of person that could provide or, be loved. So abandonment is interesting because it can come in different forms. You can be taken away, you can be left, you can be neglected.
Mm.
So I'm sharing that because to give like practical context against, we're not trying to um, judge. Again, we're not doing it, but we're not trying to judge her, but we're also not trying to judge the younger you for whatever you're feeling. We're just, everything is like fair play and everything is
Mhm.
what you felt. And so for me, like as 15 years old, I didn't feel it in the moment, but like years later processing, like I did feel abandoned by my mom because I remember living at our house and she was like drinking and smoking and just allowed demons to come through and just she treated me worse than almost pretty much anyone has ever treated me in my life. And she was my best friend and she treated me the best that anyone ever did and then the worst that anyone did. And that was very confusing. Nobody gave me the mental illness playbook. And so like it, abandonment or like trauma, it's not rational, it's emotional. And it's personal, meaning like there's a personal meaning that gets put to it. So so the adult says, yeah, I mean, it wasn't her fault, but then maybe the child says, well, maybe it was because if you would have done a better job, this wouldn't have happened. And that's where we need to go. So as a less than 1 year old, you felt abandoned because you were taken away. And so what was the decision or choice that you made about yourself, life, the world, or others back then?
I the most prominent um, emotion or decision that I think that was created at that time was that I was not worthy of her doing the things that needed to be done to avoid having us removed from her. Um, and there were instances where she's flat out said, I will not do these things. And
What
that
was
well, this is another instance when I was maybe three. My sister and I found her in the bathtub. She had slit her wrists. And so we were going to all the neighbors, telling them that our mother was bleeding. And so social services came and they just said, she was a horrible alcoholic. They said, if you do not stop drinking, we are going to take your kids away. And we were right there. And she said, I will never give up my drinking. And they took us. And so that was the next time, and so as a child, I think I felt like, we weren't worthy of her loving us enough to make that sacrifice to actually keep us like it wasn't even important. Like, how do you compare keeping your kids to drinking alcohol? I mean, I just, just makes your self-worth very small.
so let's answer that question. How can you compare like there's you and then there's alcohol and she chose alcohol.
Mhm.
So let me give you the answer. But before we do that, ask let's ask the divine presence to just consciously completely surround you, the room that you're in, consciously fill up every square inch of the room with golden light or whatever the divine presence is. And once like every nook and cranny, square inch, that means it goes through all furniture, all like everything, then ask for it to come inside and surround and fill up every cell of your being with the divine love, the divine presence, unconditional, the source of all love and all creation. You can ask that presence to multiply itself. So it's basically like, well, we just did make a copy and then go to that space and that time. It's a different location and a different time, and just completely surround that younger you. And if there's any other siblings that needs that, that's fine. We can do that simultaneously at the same time. But then let's ask the divine. It's almost like the divine hand of God, almost like Cinderella with like a magic, whatever that's called, a chariot. That pumpkin turned into this beautiful chariot. Can give her a custom ride from that time and that space all the way into the room that you are right now. So we have the divine, we have you, your present self, and then this younger you.
Okay.
And from there, the question is, how can you choose alcohol over a baby? And more specifically, me as a baby, right?
Yeah.
The answer is because alcohol allowed her to, it was in some strange way medicine, not necessarily healthy, but it was medicine that helped her not feel some things that she didn't know how to feel or process. And ask your unconscious mind or ask the divine, how old was the part of her that was drinking? Or how old was this younger part of her that she was drinking to not feel because she didn't know how to deal with? And what's the first answer that comes to mind?
8.
So you could look at it as like the 8-year old was drinking alcohol to try to not feel whatever trauma that she had. So now we're saying, like, how can an 8-year old choose not feeling an 8-year old's trauma over loving a 1-year old? And it's that's starting to make a lot more sense now. It's like, well, I've never met an 8-year old that can raise somebody else. 8-year olds, with all due respect, are meant to be taken care of. They're meant to be provided for. There needs to be a strong man, a strong woman, strong family members. That is ideal. That's great. That's not what Earth is all about. Not even the majority of the time for people. There's duality. There's trauma. There's deeper spiritual lessons. There's also, we chose the lessons before we were even born to be able to learn how to connect to ourselves, to discover ourselves, and ultimately team up with God in no matter what situations. But that's not a belief, that's a something we have to experience. And so how do you and the younger you feel with, there's an 8-year old part, basically an 8-year old that went through something. Who knows? Maybe you do know. Maybe you don't. Maybe you can ask the divine, or maybe your unconscious mind knows. But she went through something and she didn't know how to process it. And the alcohol was the best thing that she could find to not feel it because it was so painful. Nobody would argue. Nobody can argue. She didn't have the skills, the resources, or the support to be able to deal with what it was.
Mhm.
So if somebody's like put a thumb in your eye and pushes really hard, nothing else in life really matters. You don't think about taxes. You don't think about going to somebody's wedding. Like it's just that you have to deal with that. So if the pain is so eminent in your face, pain can, the younger a person is, pain can seem like universally eternal, which is a generalization and is a distortion and it's not true in reality, but it could be that person's perspective.
Mhm.
And that's where, I mean, addictions come from. There's nobody that starts smoking cigarettes necessarily at 40 or starts like they have all their needs met. And I'm going to start with an addiction. Like it's stunted growth, stunted by trauma, stunted emotional development by trauma. And then finding something to cope, to try to help, even though it really doesn't. I mean, it does. It does acutely, but not chronically.
Mhm.
Causes damage chronically, not only to the individual, but then to the relationships. So again, we're not trying to make excuses, we're not judging, but that's getting peeling back layers more of the truth that there was like, you were one and she was whatever age physically, but it was an 8-year old
Mhm.
that had trauma. And I know you know this on some level that you've evolved, your whole being has evolved past her being. So that's what's interesting about trauma, narcissistic parents is that for empaths that we in this lifetime our bodies are forever going to be younger than theirs, but soul wise it's
Mhm.
way different. And that's an
Mhm.
interesting thing for the mind to wrap itself around is like how can I be so much younger and so much like wiser, so much have
Mhm.
more awareness, so much more like common sense. And the answer is it's not your first rodeo. Like it's not, life isn't about like a gunslinger. Like you got to do your best. Like, think how many people, if it was just one lifetime, I'm just saying, and everybody, like, everyone pretty much with addictions would be in hell if we're going to talk about like how it goes. And so many people just like, I don't know, they need more, like, life is short and people need more opportunity to evolve more. If you look at life from a micro point of view, like, we need so many repetitions to evolve. Well, there's from a macro point of view, I guess we need more time to learn as well. And it's not just like a one and done kind of a thing. It's like come back and learn the lesson and keep trying till the lesson's learned. So that's what I've discovered. That's what I've learned. I don't try to like preach. I don't try to like have my beliefs be other people's beliefs. I mean, my belief is what I've experienced searching within myself. And I asked that question for my mom. She's my mom, and I wanted all these things from her. And I asked the divine and I asked different people and I've concluded that like this isn't, I came into this life with more experience and knowledge. And it's not from an ego point of view, it's from a heart, from a neo point of view, from the authentic self. And I feel grateful for that. I feel grateful because I would not want to switch positions with my mom.
Mhm.
She had it harder in life because of how much suffering and resistance and lack of resourcefulness. You can say resources, but ultimately at a certain time, it's lack of resourcefulness because there's a lot of people that don't have resources that go find the resources. It's like what you're doing, what I've done. But I wouldn't want to change with her. But I've had it harder than her in a way because I've confronted all the things that she didn't.
Mhm.
But what happens when we as children confront the things our parents don't, it's harder immediately, but it's easier in the long run. And part of our own personal journey of evolution and healing is like getting to the truth. And the truth is like like whatever your childhood was, what was her childhood like? If we were comparing an 8-year old, well, how old was she when the first time when she got taken away? Roughly
Maybe
30s,
in her mid to late 20s.
20s. Okay. So originally we were comparing a 20, I'm just going to say 28-year-old with a 1-year old. And then now, one step closer, it was an 8-year old with a 1-year old. Now let's compare her childhood with your childhood. Is traumatic and taken away and all that stuff. What was her childhood like? Do you have any idea
I,
consciously?
I do. I mean, I do know.
So
And
tell me a little
that's
bit.
well, that's part of why it was not difficult for me to forgive her because I understand that she did do the best that she could with what resources she had or tools she had. She was treated by her mother like, I mean, at a young age, 8, 9 years old, like she was competition for her mom's boyfriends. Um, and um, not loved. I mean, I knew my grandmother, my maternal grandmother. She was not a loving person. And Linda, at a very young age, was not loved. She had a father figure at some point during that time who eventually left, the only person that she really ever had any love from at all. And then all these other series of men. I mean, she was also treated like competition, and I think suffered at the hands of a lot of these people that came and went. And she didn't finish, she dropped out of high school in eighth grade. She doesn't have, much education and no support. And yeah, I mean, I have compassion for her. I definitely do. I don't harbor any unforgiveness to her. I don't feel like she owes me anything at this point in my life. So it's not really necessarily about her, but unfortunately, it's
There isn't,
attached to her.
yeah, there is an incompletion.
Right.
So it's attached to her. I'll answer and you correct me if I'm incorrect, but what is attached to her? What is attached to her is the need for love, the need for connection. And it's basically like when we're really young, this is just how every human being is, every human being is when we're really young. It's like our parents are like gods to us, meaning like they provide everything. Like the whole peekaboo game is so amazing because like they exist, now they don't exist. Like that's how simple our experience is. And when that gets taken away, when there's any breakdown of issues in the relationship with our parents, it's always experienced that there's a disconnection with us and God, which makes sense because we come through our parents physically. And there's so much about like when the sperm goes inside the egg in the embryo and then the soul enters at different times. Sometimes it's instantly, sometimes it's a little bit later. But let's just say that soul enters the embryo and there's just like a lot of magic that happens. So it makes sense because our parents are kind of the location of where we came from God. So it makes sense to want that connection from where we came from, in a way. It's almost like we're born in a specific city, but we have to like venture off. Most people don't stay in the city that they were born in forever. So the younger you has your mom on the hook for love. And that's like I said, it's still attached to my mom. So what needs to happen, we can either cut the attachments or reattach. So technically, wherever there's attachment, it has to do with the mind or the ego. Wherever there's connection, it has to do with the heart or the neo. So the spiritual surgery is to remove the attachment from your mom and transform the attachment into connection into the divine mother, the divine father. That's one issue with certain religions where they only there's God, it's a he. Cool, 50% of the equation. That's fine. I will never say God is not a he. There is a she, and it's not even a separate thing because of how the mind works. There's two different aspects of the divine masculine, the divine feminine.
Mhm.
Its nature is formless. God is in its pure form is formless, like pure, it's formless, but it can take on form. And then when we choose to relate to it, which we need to have a personal relationship, it's really important to represent both aspects of the divine father, the divine mother, the divine parents, divine masculine, divine feminine, however you want to frame it. But if God is only a he, and we need the divine feminine love, and our mind says, well, man equals masculine, which isn't true because every human being has masculine and feminine energies, left, right brain, head, heart, thinking, feeling, all those things. But how does that feel for you to ask the divine and the younger you to finally like remove your mom from being on the hook and then put the divine on the hook consciously?
That feels great.
So let me ask you, describe to me what would work out of infinite possibility, what would work best? We're going to remove your mom. We know it's your mom at that age and you at that age, and we're going to remove it and then hitch hitch it to a new wagon or whatever the statement is. Hitch your horse to a new wagon. What does that divine masculine and divine feminine, divine mother and divine father look like for you? And the reason why I'm asking is just to get clarity on it, because the more clear you are, the more powerful it is.
Um, I mean, I'm just seeing uh, clouds. I don't know why there's a sky, but um, it feels very warm and inviting and comfortable and soft. Must be the feminine side that I that's coming through.
And is the sky, this warm, the soft clouds, are they really far away, or can those clouds be right here, right now?
No, yeah, I feel like I'm actually in them.
Very good. Perfect. So ask that divine presence to do the divine surgery to now remove whatever hooks, attachments, cords, expectations from your mom, and then redirect those energetic cords to go right towards those clouds, the divine directly. Now,
Okay.
and how does that feel inside right now?
Um, it feels very secure. Uh, and the hooks, it was weird because as they came out as a like a fish hook,
Mm-hmm.
but they went into the clouds as a very thick plastic soft hook. Partially because the clouds needed a bigger anchor, but because it was just a softer transition. Um, and feels secure, which is security versus insecurity is a big deal for me. Mhm.
Because if we talk about, we call them in our training system, the heart-centered coaching method, like the 7 levels of life mastery, which is an updated version of the hierarchy of needs. And the very bottom, first need is safety.
Mhm.
And the hierarchy of needs is kind of mapped over of life. It's like you need at certain ages to get these needs met, then you can evolve to the next level. And the whole point is self-realization and the top level. But if there's stunted of growth, you'll never get there unless you go back and do it, which is great because it's not like life isn't again a gunslinger. It's like I'm in this moment and I have to make it happen now, otherwise I'll never get another shot again. Um, it's you do the best in the moment, but if you can't solve it in the moment, there's going to be a sense of separation. We get the support the tools, the training, the coaching, whatever we need to then go back and then do it. So it really, as far as like timeline goes, it doesn't matter really when it happens. It just only matters that it happens. Like once the healing happens and really truly happens, there's no like, oh, I wish it would have happened sooner. I'm like, well, that'd be nice, but it's only when we're ready and in divine timing.
Mhm.
And so you can ask the divine to if there was any hooks that were in your mom, if there was any holes that got left from the hooks being removed, ask like the divine to paint like a golden healing paint on both sides of the holes and just fill that up.
Okay.
And you could, if you wanted to, we could do this now or we can do this later or whenever. But you also could ask for what just happened to me. I want you to do the same thing for her name's Linda. So like to the divine, to God, like what you just did for me, give that to her too. And the reason why that's important is because the whole reason we're having this conversation and there was the abandonment trauma was because like a totem pole or like a river, like your parents are upstream from us. We're downstream. If you have children, they're downstream from you. The issue was there was a disconnection upstream, which impacted you downstream, which is you. So if the waters are poisoned above, it can come down here, but the other opposite is true. If healing happens here, it can be brought upstream or above. So once you have that multiply, that actually can even help you more too, and children, of course.
Okay.
How does that feel?
It, it feels good. I mean, I feel emotional because I hope she feels it, you know?
And she will on some level. This is what's interesting about parents and doing this work is it's a teeter-totter, double-edged sword, two sides of this different coin, meaning your parents are people too. And that goes multiple ways. When we're young, we're all born self-centered. We experience we're the center of the universe. Our parents are gods. It's not good, bad, right, or wrong. It just is. It makes sense until we evolve. But our parents are people too, and there's no differentiation. Like whatever our parents feel, whether it's in the womb or when we're really young, whatever they feel, we are. I'll say that again. Whatever our parents are feeling, we identify with. We are that. If they feel sad, we are sad. We equal sad. We don't have the sophistication to do otherwise. It works for that's how it works for people. But they're people too, which means there's a me and there's a you, even though we're connected in certain ways, we're also individual in other ways. But they are people too also means they have their own life, their own lessons, their own karma. They still, part of the healing the relationship is allowing them to, like, if we're going to be choosing growth and confrontation and God, like connecting God with as many things as we possibly can in our life, we also have to allow them not to. And this is where the ego can come in, and there's fears like, well, I want them to do that so they don't go to hell or blah, 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 or this. But if you just at the very minimum send God, like get the best relationship possible and then ask, God, I need you to go there too. We can't force it, can't force healing, transformation, or light, but at least we can send it. And It's up to them to accept it or not. But on some level, their higher self always gets it, of course, and it can trickle down from the higher self. So she does, in my feeling, she is grateful to the best of her ability and knowing and all that. And she also came here to learn the lessons that she came here to learn. And but this helps and this matters. This isn't like adding to her plate. This is taking off her plate, which is really, really helpful.
Mhm. Yeah, I wanted to stay there because when I was asking God to do the same for her and surround her, I was saying, but there's a lot. There's a lot. And
More than that.
he said, I got this. I got it. And that's why I chuckled because I was like, okay, okay, I trust you.
And that's what's kind of neat to think about. Like how much suffering do our parents have?
Mm,
And if you compare, how big is that suffering compared to God?
yeah,
Uncomparable. Well, then
yeah.
how about all the parents in the world? Ooh, that's a lot. How much to compare to God? Doesn't. So like a
Mm,
thousand planets of suffering.
mhm.
So that it's really important just to like get that awareness. It's almost like we're zoomed in. It's a lot. Yeah,
Yeah,
zoom out. Oh, oh, okay. Like
yeah.
you
Hmm.
created creation itself. Ah,
Hmm.
I
Yeah,
remember.
that's what he said. I got this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which just goes to trust. And then just like, thank you for giving me more trust in you. Yeah, I am. And then you can ask for that less than 1 year old you to just like come into your arms or come into your heart and just say, like, you can hang out here in my heart center as long as you like, until you're ready to evolve and grow into the exact moment, second age that I am right now. But in the meantime, this younger you has just full access to everything you've learned between then and now, all of your resources. How much has your relationship and bond with God and the divine has grown? And now that part has access to it as well. And eventually the three will turn into one integrated, conscious, present being. And that's just going to happen when, like, in divine timing.
Mhm.
But at least there's no separation anymore and no more questions of how can you choose um, to not grow over me, alcohol over me? How can you choose an 8 year old over a 1 year old? 8 year olds aren't capable of raising 1 year olds, especially the way you needed it, which was like unconditionally. And no human being can give unconditional. Like I always say this, if the whole world, all of a sudden you were Queen Lisa and the whole world was worshiping you, it still wouldn't be enough love because we need ultimately that unconditional, like the source of love. And every individual can have it. They have to learn how, they have to consciously relate to the divine. But that's as long as there's not like taking the parents off the hook and putting the divine on the hook, so to speak, there's always going to be that lacking and then a separation from God, from ourselves, from our parents, from the rest of the universe, really. And then once that does heal, because even this is going to help a lot of people heal just by watching. And this was really cool about these videos because people are like, oh, I'll watch from somebody else or whatever. And then they watch and slowly it starts to, wait a minute, wait a minute, I'm going through my own process. Wait a minute, I'm
Mhm.
upgrading. Wait a minute, there's tears. Wait a minute, I feel so much better. So that's
Yeah,
what's really cool about modeling and showing the light and what's really going on in the world. This is the most important news right now.
yeah, yeah. Hmm.
So how do you feel circling back with the question of like how could she do that? Why didn't she choose? What do you feel? No.
Um, I just have a sense of calm. When we first started talking, I noticed myself starting to kind of have trouble breathing. And that's just the fear that comes up knowing I'm getting ready to face something that, is painful or that I've had a lot of, turmoil over in my life. And so I was kind of like making sure I was taking deep breaths so I could, because I just want to receive whatever I'm supposed to receive today. So I was taking deep breaths. But now when I think about it, even the 1 year old, I mean, really, all I see is no fear, no doubt, no, I just see myself just, holding her. And she's just laying her head on my shoulder with a smile on her face. No, worry, no fear, no hurt. So it feels good.
And breathe bigger. No.
Yeah. Mhm.
How now let's circle back even one more time of like the triggers before you were being triggered and like, well, why am I being triggered and why am I acting so irrationally or whatever? How do you like let's see if you can come up with some of those triggers in the past and tell me how you are we going to be responding differently now?
Well, one that's always been a really big one revolves around drug use because Linda was a very big alcoholic and drug addict. And I actually worked on this a little bit with another coaching student because, they're fabulous. And and I had an opportunity after that session to run into another situation where somebody had talked to me about using drugs. And I was super excited. I had to tell this person all about it because I had no reaction to it. I had none. So while I have my own values around that, and that's fine, I didn't want anybody else's actions controlling how I responded. And I was super excited to have an opportunity to see that I didn't have a reaction to it. So, so that's one trigger for sure. The other trigger, I mean, honestly, I sit and think about it, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But this is really stupid, but and it's a long story. But I had a cat that was a stray that I decided to take in, and I took him in to get fixed and addressed at the vet. And he was recovering in a home of a foster parent. Uh-huh. Maybe that has a lot to do with it. And he escaped. And so now I said to this cat as I left him, "You're going to be okay. I will be back for you. I promise." And now I cannot go back for him. And so that triggered an abandonment, issue for me. It was weird.
You didn't want to do what happened to you. That's the worst
Yes.
possible. The worst thing you ever felt. It'd feel even worse to do that to somebody else. And then the divine kind of puts you in that position. It's
Mhm.
like, well, here you are doing it, but not intentionally. But your mom also didn't do it intentionally to you. But sometimes we're put in situations where it's not your fault and they escaped. And that's like part of the divine flow and like, and the and divine timing and just the what is. And so that's part of our relationship of evolving with ourselves is like getting more of that understanding and trust and like it's not really what happened like the cat left cats come and go all the time but it's the emotions that came up and then your inability to stay with his emotions the emotions were more important than the cat
Mhm.
but then it's like well I gotta help the cat and give love so I can feel some love too so I don't really have to feel this and because we don't know how and that's what's so interesting too of like judgmental and stuff like that, like with drug use and it's just if we stick around long enough, evolve long enough, go deep long enough, we start to do the things in some ways that were done to us, but it's not exactly the same, but it's the same vibration. But it's like it's really interesting when we're harmed. Someone hurts us and then we do something to somebody, we hurt somebody else, but it's not exactly the same, but it kind of feels similarly. It's like experiencing both sides of the coin
Mhm.
helps to give forgiveness and acceptance to both sides of the coin.
Yep. completely.
Yeah. So how do you feel like you'd be responding differently to like the cat situation?
Well, I really just, I literally I had a panic attack over it at work. It was crazy. But now when I think about him, the cat, his name was Barney. When I think about him, it is literally just, if it's meant to be, Lord, bring him home. If it's not, please take care of him. And that's how I feel about it. I turned him over because I know that that God will um, look out for him. He was and things, people and beings and energy comes into our lives for reasons maybe that we don't understand. And I feel like he was a lesson for me.
Yeah. Great job today.
Thanks.
It's a really big,
You what?
it's a really big deal.
Yeah, it is. I can't tell you how much I've been looking forward to this, you know. So, yeah.
Do me a favor if anything else like comes up in the future that would lead to a panic attack or something that feels like a really deep disconnection or hole in your heart, just let me know and we'll do another one.
Okay, I will.
Yeah. You did really great today.
Thanks. I really just appreciate you taking the time to go through this with me. I definitely needed it, and I've really been looking forward to it and very excited that we got to do this.
Yeah. I'm really happy for the you, but the 1 year old you upgrade. Like it's such a big deal. Like it's
Mm,
I don't know. It's interesting because the deeper we go, the deeper you go within yourself, the less there's nobody to blame.
yeah.
There's nobody blaming can only happen in the head and then getting really far away from your heart. But the deeper we go, there's nobody to blame, and then we start to experience both sides in a way. And then forgiveness happens and then surrender and release and it's just yeah, it's so important, necessary. It's like I know this is I know this is a bigger deal than we both realize, but and I don't know how far this is going to positively impact you and your relationships and the rest of your life.
Well, I'm sure it's going to have great impact.
Yeah,
I'm convinced it's going to.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Let's just check in and what is today? Thursday. Let's just maybe check in just early next week just to see how the weekend was and
Mm.
how things flow, what you notice differently. Love to hear.
Okay, absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah.
Air from Texas.
Air hug from Iowa.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, enjoy. Have a great rest of your evening, and we'll chat soon.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Jeremiah.
Yeah.
All
Good
right,
job, Lisa.
bye-bye.
Thank you for watching, and thank you so much, Lisa, for your authenticity, your vulnerability, and your leadership, showing that abandonment, trauma, and disconnection does not have to be a life sentence. Remember to subscribe to my channel, give this video a like to watch more videos like this, and I'll see you in my next video.